The dying ship. The control panel screamed warnings in 6 different tones, each one more urgent than the last. Captain Marcus Webb slammed his fist against the flickering display, as if violence could somehow coax life back into dying systems. The Nomad's End shuddered around him, her engines coughing like a plague victim in their final hours. "Marcus, we're down to 18 hours of life support." Tessa Vance's voice cut through the chaos, steady despite the fear he could see in her brown eyes. She was his navigation officer, his closest friend for 3 years of hauling cargo through the frontier, and lately something more complicated that neither of them had the courage to name. "I know," he said, running a hand through sweat-dampened hair. "The core's fractured. I can't patch it. Not out here." The view screen showed nothing but empty space. They'd taken a shortcut through an unmapped sector, gambling on time against fuel. They'd lost. Now they drifted in a region so remote that even the scavengers didn't bother hunting here. Tessa's fingers danced across her console, searching desperately for anything. A derelict ship, an asteroid with ice, a miracle. Her face was pale in the emergency lighting, highlighting the freckles across her nose that Marcus had memorized during countless night watches. She'd tied her auburn hair back in a messy knot, and he found himself thinking stupidly that he'd never told her how beautiful she looked when she concentrated. "Wait." Her voice sharpened. "I'm picking up a transmission." Marcus leaned over her shoulder, close enough to smell the recycled soap from the ship's shower. "From who?" "There's nothing out here. It's automated. Old frequency spectrum, pre-expansion era." She enhanced the signal, and a voice crackled through the speakers. The words were English, spoken with an accent that belonged to Earth centuries ago. "Crimson Port Station. Safe harbor. Repairs and refueling. All human vessels welcome." The hairs on Marcus's neck rose. "That's impossible. There are no stations in this sector. The colonization wave never reached this far. I'm not making it up." Tessa's hand found his, her fingers cold and trembling. "Marcus, we have 18 hours. Even if it's a trap, isn't that better than dying here?" He looked at her then, really looked. At the way her jaw set with determination even as her eyes betrayed terror. At the trust she placed in him to make the right choice. His thumb traced circles on her palm, a gesture that had become familiar in quiet moments. "Plot a course," he said softly. "If we're going to die, let's at least die trying." The Nomad's End turned toward the signal, limping through the dark. Behind them, their exhaust trail glowed faintly before fading into nothing. Ahead, something waited in the black, something that had been broadcasting its invitation for longer than either of them could imagine. The impossible harbor, the crimson port materialized from the void like a ghost ship emerging from fog. Marcus cut the engines, letting momentum carry them closer while Tessa ran every scan their failing systems could manage. "This doesn't make sense," she whispered. "The architecture dates back to the first wave, but the power signatures are current, active. Marcus, this station should be archaeological ruins, not this." The station sprawled before them, a circular hub with 8 docking arms extending like the petals of a mechanical flower. Red lights pulsed along its surface, giving it the appearance of something alive and breathing. The hull bore scorch marks and meteor damage, yet somehow remained functional. A docking bay door slid open smoothly, revealing a lit interior that beckoned like a warm hearth. "We're being hailed," Tessa said, her voice uncertain. A man's face appeared on their view screen. He looked perhaps 40, with neat brown hair and a smile that seemed carved rather than natural. He wore a station attendant's uniform that Marcus recognized from history texts, the kind shipping companies stopped using 200 years ago. "Welcome to Crimson Port. I'm Silas, the station attendant. Please dock at Bay 3. We'll have your vessel operational in no time." The transmission cut before Marcus could respond. "That man," Tessa breathed. "He looked wrong," Marcus finished. "Yeah, I noticed." But their oxygen gauges blinked red warnings, and the Nomad's End groaned with structural stress. Marcus guided them into the docking bay, the clamps engaging with metallic precision that equipment this old shouldn't possess. The station's air was breathable. The scan confirmed it before Marcus cracked the airlock seal. They stepped into a corridor that belonged in a museum. Polished metal floors reflected fluorescent lights. Signs pointed toward a commissary and rest area in English and Mandarin. Somewhere, music played, an old jazz standard from Earth's 22nd century. Silas waited at the end of the corridor, hands clasped behind his back. Up close, he was worse. His skin had the waxy quality of synthetic flesh. His eyes tracked their movements with mechanical precision, and he didn't blink enough. "Your ship has sustained critical damage," Silas said pleasantly. "Core fractures, thruster misalignment, life support failure. We can repair everything. No charge for human vessels." "No charge?" Marcus's hand rested near his sidearm. "What's the catch?" "No catch, Captain Webb. The Crimson Port exists to serve humanity." Silas gestured down another corridor. "Please make yourselves comfortable. Repairs will take 6 hours. We have quarters available if you'd like to rest." Tessa grabbed Marcus's arm as Silas walked away. "How did he know your name?" "We didn't transmit identification. Add it to the list of things that don't make sense." But Marcus felt exhaustion pulling at him. They'd been running on adrenaline and fear for days. 6 hours. We stay together, we stay alert, and we figure out what this place really is. They found the commissary, a cafeteria with actual food that tasted real, not synthesized. Tessa sat across from him, picking at a sandwich that seemed too perfect. "Marcus," she said quietly, "what if we can't leave? What if this place doesn't let us go?" He reached across the table, covering her hand with his. "Then we'll face it together. Like always." She turned her palm up, threading her fingers through his. "I should have said this before when we thought we'd die out there." An alarm blared. Red lights flooded the commissary. Tessa's console shrieked with proximity warnings. "Another ship," she gasped, reading the data. "Alien signature. Crothian design. They're docking." Through the commissary window, Marcus watched a battered alien freighter limp into Bay 5. Its hull was scarred and leaking atmosphere. The crew was desperate, and Silas stood in the docking bay below, smiling his terrible smile, waiting to welcome them aboard. The price of desperation. The Crothian vessel was massive compared to the Nomad's End, a cargo hauler designed to ferry goods between colony worlds. But desperation had stripped it of dignity. Atmosphere vented from hull breaches. Its engines stuttered and died as it settled into the docking clamps. And Marcus could see through the view screen that its crew was in trouble. "We need to warn them," Tessa said. Already moving toward the bay, Marcus caught her wrist. "Warn them about what? That the station feels wrong? That Silas is creepy? We don't actually know anything. Exactly. We don't know what this place does to aliens." 3 Crothians emerged from their airlock, reptilian beings twice human height, with deep green scales and amber eyes that reflected the station's crimson lighting. Their leader moved with obvious pain, one arm hanging limp, their breathing labored through their translator box. Silas appeared as if materializing from the walls themselves. "Welcome to Crimson Port Station," the Crothian captain's translator crackled. "We require immediate assistance. Our ship is dying. We can pay." "Of course," Silas replied, his tone never changing. "What do you offer?" The captain produced a container filled with glowing crystals. Vorthium, Marcus realized. Rare, valuable, worth enough to buy a small fleet. The alien was offering a fortune. "Acceptable," Silas said, closing his fingers around the container. "Bay 5 will provide full repairs. Please return to your vessel for safety protocols." The Crothians retreated gratefully. Marcus and Tessa watched from the observation deck as the repair arms extended toward the alien ship. But these weren't the same mechanical systems that were fixing the Nomad's End. These appendages moved organically, like tentacles, dripping with a viscous crimson fluid that sizzled when it touched the Crothian hull. "Oh God," Tessa whispered. The alien ship began to change. Its metal plating rippled and warped, taking on a texture that looked disturbingly biological. The repair arms didn't fix the breaches. They grew into them, fusing with the ship's structure. Inside, the Crothians screamed, their voices carrying through the station's intercom in wet, gurgling tones. The captain emerged from the airlock, clawing at the door. Stop this." "What are you—" The floor beneath them moved. Marcus realized with horror that it wasn't floor at all, but some kind of living tissue disguised as metal. It wrapped around the Crothians' legs, pulling them down. The alien thrashed, translator spitting garbled pleas. "Silas!" Marcus shouted. "Call it off!" The attendant turned, and for the first time his smile was gone. "The transaction is complete, Captain Webb. The Crimson Port provides what was promised." "The cost is set." "What cost?" "They paid you." "They paid for repairs. The station provides repairs. But the station decides how." Silas gestured to the writhing mass that had been a Crothian freighter. "Your kind may use Crimson Port freely. Others pay differently. Tessa gripped the railing, her face drained of color. It's eating them. The station is eating them. The screaming stopped. The ship collapsed inward, compressed and absorbed into the bay's structure. Within minutes, nothing remained except smooth metal walls and the faint smell of copper. Even the Crothian captain had vanished, pulled completely into the floor. Silas's smile returned. Your repairs are nearly complete, Captain Webb. Would you like to see what fuels this station? What makes it possible? Marcus felt Tessa's hand find his, squeezing with desperate strength. Every instinct screamed to run, to get back to their ship and flee this nightmare. But Silas had already turned, walking toward a door marked Authorized Personnel Only. The truth is just beyond here, the attendant called back. Don't you want to understand what you found? The heart of the station. The door opened onto a spiral staircase that descended far deeper than the station's visible structure should allow. Marcus and Tessa followed Silas down, their boots echoing on steps that transitioned from metal to something that felt disturbingly warm and fibrous beneath their feet. The first wave colonists found something here, Silas said, his voice echoing from below. Something ancient, something that predated humanity, predated the known alien species. They called it the Crimson Entity. The stairs opened into a vast chamber. Marcus stopped breathing. The room was a cathedral of flesh and machinery, fused together in ways that defied understanding. Massive organic structures pulsed with bioluminescent light, veins thick as tree trunks carrying fluids through crystalline conduits. At the center, an enormous mass beat with rhythmic contractions, a heart, impossibly large, surrounded by computer systems and power cores that had grown into its tissue. My God, Tessa whispered, stepping closer. It's alive. The whole station is built around something alive. Silas stood beside the heart, running his hand along its surface with something like affection. The entity was dormant when humans found it, buried in the planet below. They didn't understand what it was, only that it generated enormous power. So they built Crimson Port around it, a research station to study it. And you? Marcus asked. What are you? I was the head researcher, Dr. Silas Chen. The attendant's smile flickered, showing something pained beneath. The entity woke 3 months into our studies. It was hungry. It had been sleeping for millennia, and it needed sustenance. Tessa moved to Marcus's side, and he wrapped an arm around her waist, needing the contact to anchor himself. It killed the crew. Not killed, changed. Silas gestured to himself. The entity recognized something in human biology, a compatibility. We could bond with it, become part of its system. Aliens cannot. Their biology rejects the symbiosis violently. The entity feeds on them, absorbs them completely. Marcus felt sick. So humans built a trap, a lure for desperate travelers. Humans built a guardian, Silas corrected. Do you know why alien species avoided this sector before the war? Why they left these systems unexplored? Because they could feel it, some primal instinct warning them away. Humanity stumbled in with our usual blind courage, and we found what they feared. We bound it, made it ours. The heart pulsed, and Marcus felt it in his chest, a rhythm that wanted to synchronize with his own heartbeat. Tessa gasped beside him, feeling it too. The entity was aware of them, curious, reaching out with tendrils of consciousness that brushed against their minds. It won't hurt you, Silas said. To humans it offers power, protection. The galaxy learned to fear Crimson Port, and by extension to fear humanity. This station became legend, the place where alien ships go to die, where humans walk freely. It's why your species carved out an empire when you should have been conquered. Tessa's voice shook. How many ships have died here? Thousands. Over 3 centuries. Silas's eyes reflected the crimson light. And I've stood here, bound to this place, keeping the entity controlled, making sure it only feeds on those desperate or foolish enough to dock. The beacon calls them, they come. The cycle continues. Marcus pulled Tessa closer, feeling her trembling. And our ship? What did you do to it? Repairs. True repairs. The entity remembers humanity created the bond. It serves those who serve it. Silas turned. You're free to leave, Captain Webb. Your vessel is ready. You'll carry the story with you. Another chapter in the legend. In the pulsing crimson darkness, Marcus looked at Tessa. Her face was illuminated by the entity's glow, beautiful and terrified and brave. He cupped her cheek, and she leaned into his touch. Whatever happens, he whispered, I need you to know. She kissed him, desperate and fierce, cutting off his words. When they broke apart, her eyes shone with tears. I know, I've always known. The choice and the legend. They stood in the heart chamber for a long time, holding each other while the entity pulsed around them. Tessa's head rested against Marcus's chest, and he could feel her heartbeat racing against his ribs. We can't leave this here, she finally said. If we spread the story, more aliens will come. More will die. If we destroy it, Marcus replied, humanity loses whatever protection it provides. Silas said it himself. The galaxy fears this place. Fears us because of it. Silas watched them with those unchanging eyes. You can't destroy the entity. The first wave tried when they realized what they'd created. It killed them all before I managed to broker the bond. I am the leash that keeps it from spreading. If you kill me, it will be free. If you damage the station, it will rebuild. Your only choice is to leave and decide what story you tell. Tessa pulled back, looking up at Marcus. Or what? There's always an or with you. She managed a weak smile. You're thinking there's another option. Marcus turned to Silas. What if we don't just spread the story? What if we make sure only desperate ships find this place? We could sabotage the beacon, weaken the signal. Let it fade into actual legend instead of operational nightmare. The entity won't allow it, Silas said. It needs to feed. If ships stop coming, it will find other ways to hunt, ways I cannot control. Then feed it something else. Tessa stepped toward the massive heart, and Marcus's instinct was to pull her back, but she moved with purpose. It's alive, it thinks. What if we taught it to feed on something besides organic matter? Energy signatures, radiation, stellar phenomena? Silas tilted his head, the first uncertain gesture Marcus had seen from him. The researchers tried. It rejected everything except living tissue, because they weren't bonded with it. But you are. Tessa's voice grew stronger. You said it recognizes humans, trusts us. If you're truly part of it, you could teach it, change its diet. It would take time, maybe years, but it might work, Marcus finished, understanding dawning. He approached the heart, placing his palm against its warm surface. The entity's consciousness brushed his mind again, and this time he didn't pull away. He felt its hunger, ancient and simple, but also its loneliness. It's been asleep for millennia, right? It doesn't know what exists out here. It only knows what it's been taught. Silas stared at them both, something almost human flickering in his expression. If you're wrong, the entity could break containment. Could spread across this entire sector. If we're right, Tessa countered, maybe Crimson Port becomes what it was supposed to be. An actual haven, not a trap. Marcus felt the weight of the choice crushing down on him. They could leave now, fly home, report what they'd found, and let military command decide. They could bury the station's location and hope it faded from memory. Or they could try something impossible. Teach a living nightmare to dream of something other than blood. He looked at Tessa, saw his own fear and hope reflected in her eyes. Together? Always. They turned to Silas as one. We'll help you. However long it takes. We'll come back with research, with scientists who can study the entity without exploitation. We'll find a way. For the first time since they'd met him, Silas's smile reached his eyes. The entity accepts. It can feel your intention, your bond with each other. That's what it recognizes. Partnership, symbiosis. Perhaps there is hope for change. Hours later, the Nomad's End pulled away from Crimson Port. Her engines hummed with power that shouldn't have been possible from their old reactor. Tessa sat in the co-pilot seat, her hand clasped in Marcus's as they set course for human space. We're really coming back? She asked softly. We are. Marcus squeezed her fingers. With help, with hope. Maybe we can turn humanity's nightmare into something better. Behind them, the station's beacon pulsed. But its message had changed, just slightly. Where it once called across the void in harsh invitation, it now whispered, a gentler signal, still strong enough to guide the desperate, but no longer predatory. Silas stood in the observation deck, watching their ship disappear into the black. The entity's consciousness touched his mind, curious and almost pleased. For 300 years he had been alone. Now perhaps that would change. In the Nomad's End, Marcus pulled Tessa close, kissing her temple. Whatever comes next, we face it together, she finished. Always, the stars stretched before them, full of possibilities and dangers. But for the first time since entering this cursed sector, they felt hope. Crimson Port still existed, still held its terrible secrets. But now it also held a promise. The legend would change. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually. And that was enough.